It is April 7th, 2021. We're at a Board of Education regular meeting. It is 7 p.m. and I'm calling the meeting to order. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Dobbins.
Here.
Mrs. Etter.
Here.
Mr. Naaman.
Here.
Mr. Sujaki.
Here.
Mrs. Schukert.
Here, 5 present, 0 absent. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to today's Board of Education meeting. The Ohio, I don't need to read that, correct? Because we're not doing Zoom? Okay. But we still have the option to go remotely if needed. The board values and encourages public comment on education issues and is now asking the public to email comments that it might have otherwise provided during the public comments portion of this meeting to the following email address, info@cuiheights.org, that's info@cuyhts.org. The board will strive to respond to all comments received as promptly as possible. A copy of the board meeting agenda is available to review on our school district's website. And next up, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you could stand for that, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I please have a motion, sorry guys, motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Naaman,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Dobbins. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Naaman.
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Mr. Sujaki.
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Next up, we have presentations, and I will hand it over to you, Mr. Young.
Thank you so much. I'm very fortunate tonight to have Pam Mead, our Food and Child Nutrition Services Supervisor, with us. She and I are going to provide a very quick update to our food service program. This is a requirement by law that we annually provide an update to the Board of Education about how we are meeting the national guidelines for nutrition as well as student wellness. We're going to be talking about Board Policy 8500, which I included a copy of that in everybody's folder, as well as a memo of this particular presentation. We will be updating Policy 8500 later this month, as there was a Neola update that came out a couple months ago. So nothing major, but it is ironic that at this time we're going to talk about Policy 8500 in a little bit more detail. See if this works from afar here. Before we go into this, I just want to give a big shout out to our food service team this year. Mrs. Mead has done a tremendous job as the leader of this group, but she will tell you that she has an extremely strong team, and as so many have during this pandemic, they haven't perseverated on the problems. They've been about how do we seek solutions so that we provide healthy meals to our students. And they have really worked this year with a greater purpose in mind. They've made sacrifices that they were glad to make, to be honest, because they knew that they were providing meals to students during a pandemic at home when they weren't in school. They've been providing breakfast at the elementary school this year, which has been a fantastic addition to our food service program. And they've actually increased production. They've found more efficient ways to work, and they will continue to develop and evolve. But they've done some amazing things. They prepared meals to homes 5 days a week. They ensured that when we were remote or fully remote, we, in cooperation with our transportation department, delivered meals to our students at homes that needed it. In cooperation with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health and Northeast Ohio ESC, if you recall, we provided right before Thanksgiving just around 80 gift cards to families on our free and reduced lunch program, which was something that Ms. Mead helped us with. Also around that time, because we were going to go full remote, we had some food that we knew would not be used by the turn of the year. So before it expired, we were able to donate that food to Edna House. And we donated some items. They told us we never get meat products. We're always getting pasta and vegetables. We donated so much meat to them. They were so excited to get some of our extra produce, and it went to a great cause. We've provided lunch to all students this year as part of our federal waiver program. So every student in the district has gotten free meals that has wanted one, not just those on free and reduced lunch while we have been in session. And as I said, we've offered breakfast this year at the elementary school once we got back in session. So they're now running two courses a day. It's not just lunch anymore. It's breakfast. They come in, they prepare the breakfast, and then they prepare the lunch. And when we were hybrid, they were also then preparing for the meals for the students at home. So it's really been quite impressive, and I'm really proud of the work that they have done. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I can just add that I'm extremely proud of all the ladies, and they've exceeded all my expectations of them. I never realized how passionate they all felt about their jobs and feeding the children in our community. So I really commend them for that. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. It starts with the top. So appreciate your work on that as well. So as I said, school districts must adopt and enforce a nutrition standards policy that considers the requirements of ORC 3313.814. And that policy, again, that I provided you, 8500, does meet this particular guideline. So we must, in accordance with that revised code, designate staff to prepare an annual report on the district or school's compliance with nutrition standards. And that's what we're doing tonight, since she is the direct supervisor of the food service program, and yay, I'm her direct supervisor. We have collaborated. It's been more of a collaboration than anything. I've really appreciated her insights. We want to first talk about the selection of the food, just very briefly. We do have a partner, Pasonic Partners LLC. Very important partnership because they ensure that we are in compliance with the nutritional standards. They have the licensed registered dietitians that we need in order to provide that accurate feedback. They help us prepare our menus, and those menus are posted on our school's website with the standards, as well as allergen information and the nutritional labels of all the food. If you've never gone onto our website, all of that information that you see is a result of our partnership with Pasonic. Did you have anything you wanted to add about Pasonic?
Oh, I can't say enough great things about them. They're fantastic. We use them for our training. They've helped us a lot with the whole COVID, trying to get back on track. And they're so flexible and understanding and so supportive of our team. So we're really thankful to them.
We also, with our selection, we also use the Healthy Meal Planner Pro. This further ensures that we are aligning with the national guidelines, but it also tells us if we are, we're exceeding a maximum amount or if we're not meeting a minimum amount of requirements. So for example, Ms. Mead told me that sodium tends to be that one thing that's always very difficult to stay under the maximum amount. All the things that people like, way too full of sodium, and the students will go to her often and say, do you have any salt for this? It's like, did you even put any salt on the food? And it's because there's a minimum and a maximum. And then we have our smart snacks in schools. This is all of our a la carte items, as well as those things that you see in the vending machines. So you're not going to find candy bars anymore. You're going to find cinnamon rolls and things like that, unless they meet a specific standard. So all the juices, the snacks, the nutritional bars, even some of the healthier chips, those all are part of the Smart Snacks in Schools program. There's actually a calculator, and you can access the calculator online, and you can type in even from home, you can type in any item you have in your house into this particular calculator, and it's going to give you all of the value to tell you whether the food that you're eating would actually be in compliance with what we're required to serve here at school. So it's an interesting thing to engage the public if we wanted to in some of those healthier lifestyles at home for those that are packing food. Anything else you want to add about the selection process?
Everything that we have at the school prior to COVID, when we had a lot of snacks, every single item is run through the Smart Snack Calculator. I do print out the final report on it, and I keep all of them in a binder, so if anybody ever would like access to it. But again, you could do it yourself, and you can just put in your Google or search bar Smart Snack Calculator, it'll pop right up. It's really fun actually to use.
Sounds like a good assignment.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
which teacher's going to jump on that and
Right.
have the kids start looking at their homes?
Well, that's actually because we have to do an audit for our wellness program at the end of this school year for next school year. And one of the things that it asks us is, how are we integrating our nutrition program either through our FCS coursework or our health classes with our food service program. So that's something that we're going to look to do a little bit more in the future, as we're required to do this now by federal law. So it's going to be really exciting in the future. So with respect to preparation, all of our staff has had proper certification. They attend Serve Safe certification once every 4 years. Those certificates are posted down in the kitchen. It's one of the things that the Board of Health, when they do their biannual inspection, they look to see that you have those certifications posted and up to date. All of our employees know how to check food for the proper temperature. They properly wash the food. They prep the fruits and vegetables. Everything is fresh. We don't do anything longer than 2 days out. We have fresh deliveries that come every week here to the school. Ms. Mead keeps production sheets so she can track how much food is being prepared so that we can limit waste. So we know with each subsequent order that we're ordering the right amount of food, which can be tricky because you've got your students who pack and you've got your students who will take meals at school. Right now everybody's taking a meal even if they pack, I think, but during a typical school year, that's an art to be able to predict accurately so that you have enough food that kids like and it is still healthy. And then the principles of hazard analysis and critical control point systems are implemented with the intent of preventing foodborne illness, and it's found in every recipe that we have. Anything on preparation?
Preparation is our mornings, so if you want to get a hold of us, please don't bother us in the morning. But yeah, there's a lot of prep, and washing vegetables. We come a long way with that. We do use the vinegar rinse that is recommended by the Cuyahoga County Board of Health. So, and the ladies are very great about cleaning, especially the celery. So they're fantastic.
So in addition to prepping and serving the food, it doesn't just stop there with our food service staff. They are aware of the importance of the consumption piece, that there could be an allergic reaction. I mean, we do our due diligence in ensuring that we have that information ahead of time. Ms. Mead knows which students have reported allergies to food, and we'll talk about that substitution piece here in a little bit. But there is an EpiPen in the cafeteria should we have an adverse reaction. Choking can always be a concern, and through CPR certification that we do regularly, as well as our training through Public School Works, which is our online professional development programming that we do annually, ensures that we have the latest updates to those safety measures. With respect to the disposal of food, if food is left out too long, it's disposed of, and it's marked on those production sheets, because again, we want to minimize waste. When we can donate food that we haven't used, we try to do so. For example, when we donated the food to the Edna House. But we would have a process. If we didn't have somebody to donate to, if we wanted to sell that food in bulk, there is a process that we would have to go through in order to do that. You can't just give food away. The expiration dates are checked frequently. And a big point that she wanted me to emphasize is we do not serve reheated food. There's no leftovers. Sometimes leftovers are the best. Not in school. We do not do leftovers. Nothing is reheated and then served to our students. Anything you want to add on that?
No, we're big on that with reheating because we're big on presentation, everything being fresh, and I don't feel like we could reheat food, but it's just not recommended to do.
Right. With respect to substitutions, we do provide substitutions to students who have a 504 plan because of some medical allergen. However, we don't have to have a plan in place if a doctor feels that this child will have an adverse effect. If the parent and the student bring that documentation to us, we'll provide appropriate substitutions for these students. We don't substitute just because you don't like something. You have to have a legitimate need, but you don't need an official document in place like a 504 plan. If we do have some type of signed statement by a medical authority, then we will make that substitution as well. And you had mentioned about even some of the unique dietary needs, like those that are vegetarian and
Yes.
So on.
We do try to pay special attention. We have a small percentage of children that are now meat eaters, and we are aware of them. We talk a lot of the students, He talks with us a lot.
Oh.
They let us know, the children do let us know, and we have some
Yep.
children that do ask for vegetarian options, so we do our best. On taco day, we'll have the bean option, we have salads for them, offer day also, so there's always something for everyone.
My younger son lunch is his favorite class of the day, so so he talks more with the food service personnel than he does his teachers, I'm afraid. And then just some miscellaneous things that are referenced in the policy. Meals are provided to all deemed qualified per the superintendent's guidelines. So we do provide meals to all of our students. We don't have any exceptions to that. All of our students are enrolled and have access to meals. For those who would qualify, we send home, it's the next to last bullet point, we send home lunch applications to all families to apply for free and reduced lunch. It doesn't mean that they will, but all of those are mailed home with our typical beginning of the year mailing. We do have 2 inspections annually conducted by the Cuyahoga County Board of Health, and that's submitted to the Ohio Department of Education. Pam takes care of that and posts that in the service stations in our cafeterias. Any carryover funds, because sometimes we get questions about that. We've got is it what's the
We use the
pay for it system. So if you have $10 left on your account at the end of the school year, you want to explain what happens to carryover money?
So, very well, so if you go to senior, and then you have a freshman, and your senior's graduating, now your freshman would get that money. Unless you told us otherwise, like, I want to use the money for a science fee or something else, then we work it out that way.
Yeah, we don't cut checks to kids for the extra money. So that's a fantastic. And there are also guidelines in place that deal with debts. You've heard some of those some stories where you withhold lunch because a child has too large of a debt. Well, that doesn't happen here. We have guidelines in place to collect those debts to ensure that we don't have any issues there of accumulating debt. And basically, any other items that are requested, or if you have questions, Ms. Mead is always available, except in the morning when it's prep time, because if we don't serve food on time, we got some angry kids in the cafeteria. But do you have any questions for her right now? She's our local expert on this, and I want to defer to her if you have any questions about our food service program.
I want to ask, and I think that I should know this, but the free meals go through this school year, correct, as of right now?
Yes, they
Okay.
just extended the waiver, it goes until September 30th now.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's why all the children in the district get to eat meals for free right now. And we do have pickups too. If some families would like to pick up meals if their students are still at home, we still have a pickup for families too.
Thank you.
I'm just in awe that you were able to do all this during these crazy times. I mean, I'm being serious here, especially delivering the meals to the students that qualified, for the meals, and getting them to their homes. That's an awesome accomplishment, and I'm so appreciative that we were able to do that. Really.
Yeah, I really have to give all the credit to the ladies in the kitchen. I come up with the food allergy list, so don't deliver peanut butter and jelly to this family, give this family turkey sandwiches instead. They really organized most of it and bagged every single lunch, made sure that there was a sandwich, a fruit, a vegetable, a milk. If there wasn't milk, if we had water, we provided water. If we had extra snacks that day, we would give them brownie, just to make it fun for them, because it was just a dark time for all the kids.
Did you have it like an assembly line kind of setup?
Kind of, yeah, we
Yeah.
kind of like that, but the ladies came up with it. They worked so well together, and it just fell all into place. I just give them the paperwork and say, hey, this is what we need to do, and then they just kind of figure it out. It's like a well-oiled machine. They're really fantastic. I can't gush enough about them, honestly.
Yeah, the ability to deliver the food to students at home during this, that I have to give thanks to the Board of Education, Mr. Muccio and Mr. Evans, for wanting to ensure that our support staff were able to continue to work during the pandemic. And this was one of the areas where our drivers, in collaboration with our food service department, said this is something we we need to do for our families to ensure that they have one of those basic needs, and that's to have a meal. And they came up with the system, and they delivered food 5 days a week when students were, well, they were delivering 5 days a week regardless until we came back 100%. And we are still delivering on Wednesdays to kids who need it. So it's really, you talk about just the whole system, seeing the bigger picture here. A lot of credit goes to a lot of people, so.
I just have to say, truly thank you very much. I know that it can't be easy because in these times, I know that the kitchen's probably hot, you're wearing the masks, you're probably sweating up a storm, and so that's greatly appreciated. I know that to be put in that position is not always fun, and I know that you're probably coming home and soaked and sweat, and your mask is all wet, but I mean, it's really appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you. It's a very rewarding job. It really is.
We're lucky to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're really happy to be with you.
All right, fantastic. So next year, we'll talk about the wellness policy when we do our update, because that'll be a result of our triennial audit that we have to do, so. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mead.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
your
much.
time tonight. I know it's been a long day for you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, next up, let's talk about the extended learning plan. There are really two parts of the extended learning plan. There's the background for what is the extended learning plan, and then what is the what's the tentative best scenario game plan for Cuyahoga Heights moving forward. I provided two documents in your folder for that. The first document you see is the official extended learning plan that has been sent to the Ohio Department of Education. It is on their website. It is also on our website, so those two are linked together, and this is the document. I'll explain a little bit about why it has the form that it has. It's a form that is expected to be flexible. It provides enough information to know the direction we're going, but not so much information that it locks us in. So for example, when you see things like funding, I put that the funding will be drawn from the general fund or grant funding. I don't put a specific amount, and I don't lock us into one thing or another, because as Mr. Muccio will tell you, funds get shifted and things happen, so we want to make sure that we have flexibility in our plan. Some school districts submitted plans that have very specific dollar amounts tied to it. For us, I want to keep that open-ended, knowing that we've got a treasurer and a superintendent who are fiscally responsible. So. Extended learning, just by definition, refers to any educational program or strategy intended to increase the amount of time students are learning, especially for the purpose of improving academic achievement and reducing learning gaps. And we know with COVID-19, we have some gaps that are there in general, and for some students, they are more significant than they are for others. But on February 9th of 2021, during a press conference, Governor DeWine made the announcement that school districts needed to come up with plans, these extended learning plans, in order to help address those gaps that were anticipated. The governor asked schools and districts to provide their plans to the public in General Assembly no later than April 1st. We met that deadline March 30th. I think we submitted it. It was on the website by March 31st, and there are several school districts in Ohio that are not compliant with that. They have not posted theirs. Basically because it's not law. It was a request. However, there have been some hints that this will be in legislation very soon. So might as well be out in front of it. And what do you have to hide? I mean, we're dedicated to our students and to ensuring that we are giving them the best experience. There are 6 areas that have to be addressed, and you'll see those areas spelled out in the larger document. You have to identify the impacted students, the ones that you are targeting. Well, we have made the decision, Mr. Evans has vocalized this, that extended learning needs to be available to as many students as possible. Any student that fits the program needs to be part of the program. You have to identify the specific needs. Do they need it in math? Do they need it in language arts? They need it for graduation purposes, and if they do need it, then what do they need the most? Because you gotta focus on the highest yield needs, because you're not going to be able to address them all right, at one time. So you got to have a a game plan. Resources and budgeting are important. Many school districts have talked about using the ESSER2 funds. I know that's something that, as I get later into the presentation, that we are planning to use as well. You have to have a variety of approaches that you want to consider, which we do. We'll talk about the summer approach, but we'll also talk about the more long-term approach, especially at the primary grade levels at the elementary school, as well as for the students in the middle school and high school with respect to transitions and social, emotional, and really that post-secondary plan. We'll talk about that. The various partnerships, whether that's with an ESC, your libraries, your villages, so on and so forth. And then alignment. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing aligns with things that you are already doing in your district. All right? Don't do something in addition to. Make sure it aligns. Make sure that it's going to enhance the entire system because you were already working on that. So that's what we're considering as well. So as I said, it is likely that this is going to end up in some type of proposed legislation. You can find this on the Department of Education's website. And understand, too, that this is intended to be a multi-year extended learning plan. It's supposed to go through the end of this school year, next school year, and the following school year. All right? And I think by the end, you'll see that we will talk about a summer component. That's a small piece. That's a 1%er, a 5%. But the positions that we've talked about adding at the elementary school that the board has approved us to interview for, that's a long-term plan because we are looking at every kid in certain grade levels being exposed to smaller class sizes, more targeted instruction, more specialized instruction. That's a longer-term plan that we're committing to, and we'll be able to use some of the grant funding in order to subsidize the salaries and benefits. This is just a slide. I was telling Mr. Dobbins at our coffee talk 2 weeks ago. This is something we were ready for. I know when I interviewed last year for this job, I mentioned the COVID slide. It was part of my presentation because we always have a summer slide. And there's two ways that you can look at it. You can either say learning stopped on March 13th, and now let's extrapolate the slide from there. Or you can say learning at a minimum is just going to stay the same from where it was that you left it on March 13th. Either way, you're not going to be where you were had you gone to the end of the school year. There's going to be some form of a slide. We knew this. This is mathematics. That's language arts. And what that really means is that we expected going into the school year, this is based on data from NWEA, which they're the vendor who they create the assessment called MAP. MAP is one of the highest used assessments of language arts and mathematics in the country to measure growth and achievement. A tremendous amount of data that feeds into that, so you can feel that their results are very reliable. The projections were that students would return in the fall of 2020 with roughly 70% of the learning gains in reading relative to a typical school year. And it was interesting with the KRA results based on that preschool piece. We saw a slide. We did see a slight slide there. I think we're pretty close to 70%. We're on target, so it's almost matched perfectly. In mathematics, they were only going to have 50% of their gains, all right, retained for the next school year. So missing school for a prolonged period of time is going to have major effects. Now, again, this was the KRA data from August. We saw that in 2020, 70% of our students were demonstrating overall readiness, okay? In a typical year for us, that's usually around 80%. So we had almost an 11% gap from previous years. And we know there are different cohorts of kids, but we're comparing us to us. And I think that's important. Let's compare us to us and not us to the state of Ohio or a school district down the street. We want to make sure that we're comparing us to us. And those are our typical numbers. We're usually about 80%, 80.6% demonstrating readiness. This is KRA based on preschool experience prior to our kids learning in kindergarten. With respect to language and literacy, again, 70% of our students were on track, 30% not. So I thought that was interesting that it matched up. Those numbers kind of match up. I'm not saying they mean the same thing, but it's interesting that they're both 70% that are 70% of our kids are ready, 30% were not. So those numbers are listed there. You can see how we compare to the state of Ohio and how we compare to COG. Typically, we're at 91% readiness in literacy. So that was a 21% drop from the prior year. So, just a summary of that data, 30% of our students were not demonstrating overall readiness upon entering kindergarten. This is an increase of 10% from the previous 2 years. In the area of language literacy, 30% of our students were not on track. This is an increase of 20%. This implies that fewer students had the basic skills and the foundations in things like phonemic awareness. We're talking about letter naming fluency, letter sound fluency, first sound fluency, rhyming, all of those important foundational skills. We have more kids without those entering kindergarten than we had in the past. That's not saying our teachers aren't going to close gaps, because they are, but they're closing a gap that's now wider than it typically has been in the past. The long-term effects for these students are deficiencies in mastering phonics skills and eventually reading comprehension. We know that if kids don't learn to read properly, the way the brain learns to read, then that's going to have ramifications when it comes to reading comprehension down the road. Why? It's because the pandemic, the closures of preschools, the lack of summer programming, and social emotional factors. All right, those were our kindergarten kids. This was our iReady data. I think we shared this a couple weeks ago in an executive session with you. That's our iReady reading data and our math data. I'll just give you the summary of that quickly. For the winter diagnostic assessment on iReady, taken in February of 2021 for this school year, 43% of the elementary students are at least one grade level below expected proficiency in reading. For the same assessment, 53% of our elementary students are at least one grade level below in mathematics. So we're seeing a bigger gap actually in math than in reading. And for those that are familiar with teaching these subjects will say, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's harder to teach math fluency through a computer screen than it is to teach reading fluency. Reading can be reinforced in almost every subject that you do, and can be reinforced at home, can be reinforced with peers, can be reinforced with your teachers. Mathematics, it's very, very sequential, very targeted. So we've got a little bit of a bigger gap in mathematics. Now, how does that compare to in the past? At the same time last school year, those numbers were 39% and 45%. So, and again, our teachers do a great job of closing those gaps there towards the end of the year. But we're up 4% in reading, and we're up 8% in mathematics. So that doesn't mean that we're not making gains. We are, but we know that we've got more gaps because of the pandemic. So what are we going to do about it? So you've got the data in front of you. What are you going to do about it? So the proposed summer plan, we'll start with the summer part of it because that's the smallest piece of it. We want to focus on ELA and mathematics because that's where we know we have those gaps that are going to be tested over and over and over and over again. And we know that they build extremely sequentially over the years. Not that other subjects don't, but if you can't read properly, you don't do well in science and in social studies either, or mathematics. If you don't do well in mathematics, you don't do well in science. You may not do well in some of your aspects of language arts and music and art, which require the grasping of spatial relationships and things like that. So we know that it has long-term effects. We also need to focus on the high school piece, the graduation credits, the credit recovery piece, to making sure our kids are on target to graduate on time with a post-secondary plan in place. We know we have social emotional considerations that we have to address. Short-term and long-term solutions. Summer is a short-term solution. We've got some other long-term solutions. And we got to use data. We got to use the KRA, the iReady. We'll do one more diagnostic in the iReady in May. So we're going to have that last data point to know which are our highest need kids, even though we invite everybody in math and language arts. By invitation, some are going to be voluntold, you need to do this, all right, because they have the biggest gaps. We also want to use feedback from principals, feedback from our staff, feedback from students, and feedback from our families. So this is a plan that will continue to adapt. I provided this to you in a memo that went home in a Friday packet a couple weeks ago, and it's in your folder. This is a little bit more specifics, and I'm sharing this with you tonight. I plan to start with Mr. Evans, start communicating this more than with our staff, because the key piece of this is you need people. All right, you need people to be able to deliver this, and we recognize we don't just need the teachers, we need the food service folks to provide the 2 meals while they're there, and we also need transportation personnel as well. So, yeah, we plan to roll this tentative schedule out. You'll notice in K through 6, it's a 3-week program. We don't do anything the first week that we're out of school. We give everybody a week to catch their breath, and then we come back K through 6, 3 days a week for approximately 3 hours a day. Okay, we're going to focus on math and language arts. We're going to go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We want everybody to have that Monday. Everybody gets a 5-day weekend, right? Sorry, I did the wrong math. See, I have had a COVID slide. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, a 4-day weekend. And you get your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to come to school for a morning session. We'll have you out by noon. We'll feed you a breakfast. We'll feed you a lunch. We're going to do a session on language arts. We can do a session in mathematics. We'll use iReady, which has lessons already built into the program that says this group needs this skill right now. If they don't get this skill right now, they will not advance. That's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on what's in front of us, and we're going to close that single gap over a 3 weeks, 9 day span. That's our goal, is to be able to accomplish that one highest need area, not 25 needs, that one need. And along the way, try to build in some of the social emotional pieces. Kids working together, praising kids, still having a little break in there. Again, you've got breakfast, we're eating together. It's a community thing. You got lunch, we're eating together, it's a community thing. Put them on the bus, go home, and be a kid the rest of the afternoon. And that's our general schedule you see there. 8:45 to 9 is the breakfast. Then you got lesson 1, which will take place over the next hour and 15 minutes. That includes a break. So you're basically an hour on with a 15-minute break. Then another hour with a 15-minute break. And then we have lunch and we dismiss and send the kids home. That's what we're targeting K through 6. We're doing K through 6, even though 6 is the middle school, because we have the iReady assessment for K through 6. Okay? We don't use it for 7 and 8 because kids start to age out and you start getting false data. It basically says there is no data because the kids are getting every question right, and it doesn't provide any additional information. We're going to have, though, grades 7 and 8 follow this exact same schedule, the same 3 days per week for 3 weeks. We're also going to focus on math and language arts. What we're going to do, though, is use our past state assessment data. When I was at Summit ESC, I created a template that I then marketed to school districts that allowed you to copy and paste all of the item analysis data, and then it would sort it by standard to let you know which were the highest deficiencies by standard on a state assessment. The state portal doesn't do that for you. So we have 3 years of data on our kids from the past. We know in any normal year what our kids struggled with. Let's assume that they struggle with that even more now. So we don't have to guess. We've got 3 years of data from a high-achieving school district of where our standout areas, focus on those standout areas, start closing those gaps the best we can. Close that single gap or that single cluster of standards, and we've done a good thing. So we're not going to overcomplicate it. Let's use the data that's in front of us, and let's act upon that singular piece. And again, they're going to follow that same exact schedule. A language arts lesson, a math lesson, everybody's on their way. At the high school, it gets a little bit more complicated. You're going to have fewer students because, again, we're focusing on credit recovery or credit deficiency first. These are kids who are either not on, well, they're just not on target to graduate. They failed a class and they need to recover a credit, or they transferred to our school district and maybe failed a class there or didn't take courses there, but now they find themselves behind because we require 22 credits to graduate, not 20. We're 2 credits above state average. So when kids transfer in, they're not always on target to graduate. Especially if you only have a 6-period day or a 7-period day, whereas we have a 9-period day, there aren't as many opportunities. So those are one of those hidden obstacles that kids have when they come here in high school is, did the credits match up with our graduation requirements? So we're going to focus on that. This will be delivered through online learning. all right, because you need a full curriculum. This is going to be 5 days a week, and this could be up to like 8:45 to 3:15. This could be a full day for the student with a lunch break in between. Again, these kids have to make up, basically, they have to do 120 hours worth of work to earn that old Carnegie credit equivalent to our full credit courses here. So there's a lot of responsibility on the kid. We would need a staff member to facilitate that these kids are making progress. Typically, when you purchase these courses for kids, they have a year to complete them. We need kids to complete them before the summer's over. We're going to guide them for 3 weeks. All right, so we really want to focus on that. So kids will have a couple options. They can do a morning session, they can do an afternoon session, or they can do a full day session. If they do a full day session, we have the lunch option for them, as well as transportation in the morning. Transportation in the afternoon would be more difficult for those kids at the end of the day. The second piece is related to the state testing, specifically in English 2, which is a 10th grade course, and then Algebra 1. 2 years ago, the state changed the graduation requirement with testing. Students must earn a score of 684 on those state assessments. It's called a competency score. We will not get these scores back until June 30th. All right, and retesting occurs in mid-July. So we're going to rely heavily upon our teachers to recommend kids who they do not believe may be on target to hit that 684. If they are close, I want them in this program. And we've had excellent results with our teachers in those content areas, getting kids who typically don't pass tests to pass the test they need for graduation requirements. At this point, it is about passing and teaching to the test because it's tied to that graduation requirement. And we've had tremendous success with a couple of our teachers who have delivered this. So we would focus specifically on Algebra 1 and English 2 because they have to hit that 684, and we don't want to take a risk. Otherwise, they go into next school year, and now we have to retake tests, we have to do remediation, and that starts to overwhelm a kid's schedule who may already be overwhelmed anyways. So this is really majorly beneficial at that high school level. So we have options for K through graduation, really, if they absolutely need it here. I'm not saying every kid this fits their model, but this is something that we are highly considering. We believe we would need probably 25 staff members in order to pull this off. Again, it's going to be based on enrollment of kids. We have to survey our families who are interested, as well as the ones that we're going to invite very strongly. We know we have some things to work out with respect to the finances. Mr. Muccio says we have money from Success and Wellness, money that we can use to pay this. So we may look at offering supplementals as opposed to hourly rates. Supplementals have more flexibility, and you can offer a little bit more money in supplementals. We may be looking at that piece. Mr. Evans will be talking to you about that. For our students who require extended school year per their special education programming, that's going to continue to be offered. So we have students, I believe, I think it's 13 students we have potentially that will be in extended school year already. We offer this every year. We'll continue to do that. We know we have some social emotional factors. We've talked about trying to do some community events. We wanted to do a movie night on the football field where families can bring a blanket and we can rent a screen and show a movie that's not going to get us in copyright trouble. Just do something, or have a family game night where just people can come and sit on the field, we'll turn on the lights, and just for a few hours, bring a basket of food and sit there with your family and do a fun event outside with your family, socially distanced as part of a community. We think things like that would be a nice touch as well. I know Mr. Evans wants to do a bonfire, community bonfire, where he burns all of the shields that are disposable that we've purchased. I just asked that he removes the plastic because of the toxic. So remove the plastic. So we know that we want to touch upon those pieces as well. Transportation and food service is going to have to be provided, so we know we've got some challenges there as well, because we have typically used 8 drivers to bus our extended school year kids. So how do you provide transportation to students coming to school every day when the bus drivers are already out on routes? So we've got some challenges we have to work through. We've got solutions to them, but we've got to work through some of those challenges as well. I just want to mention that beyond summer of 2021, this is really where the magic happens, I think. Using those ESSER funds and having more of a long-term plan, we are allowed to use those ESSER funds for learning loss. And this is where additional staff at the elementary school, in the short term, I think could be majorly beneficial to decrease class size in reading, to reduce class size in mathematics, to provide more targeted instruction in those classes, to foster deeper relationships with those kids because they are in smaller groups, and now we get to know kids on a more intimate basis when we have 12 kids as opposed to 20 kids in a class, and allows us to loop. So for example, if a teacher is brought on to do math and language arts with grades 1 and 2 next school year because our kindergartners become first graders become second graders, the following year that teacher could follow those kids into second grade and third grade. Now we've built that multi-year relationship with the kids, and we really know how to advance them because we actually know them as human beings, as learners, as what their struggles are and their successes. So, I know Mrs. Houchin had presented this to you in an executive session before, and we have posted those 2 positions that we plan to begin interviewing mid-April to the end of April. So that's going to be fantastic. And then that multi-tiered system of support transition specialist position at the middle school, high school, this is really going to take our programming to another level. I know people aren't as familiar with MTSS as they are some of the other acronyms we throw around, but this is really, since 2016, has caught a lot of momentum across the country, and specifically in Ohio. It is the model that state support teams use in order to promote continuous improvement in the area of behaviors, academics, post-transition planning, and hitting upon those social emotional pieces to help fill some of those gaps. Typically that were expected of school counselors. We know school counselors, and you can attest to that, Mrs. Schukert, that the amount of responsibility that's fallen on our school counselors' plates, as that has increased, there's the need to start having more specialized people to do it right. Not that you can't do it right, but this is in addition to all those other things. So this is going to be a transformational position for us at the high school that I know the board has supported Mr. Evans on those recommendations. So that's the short and long of it. We still have some things to work out and some collaborations to be had, but any questions you have, I'd be glad to answer them. Or you may have more as things evolve. But the next step is for us to communicate with our staff, to post positions, and to see who we have that's interested from our staff. We've done a tremendous job. I mean, every human being employed by this school has knocked it out of the park this year. They've all sought solutions to all of our problems, and they have gone above and beyond. And they're tired. Parents are tired. Mr. Muccio is not tired. He seems like the Energizer Bunny, but even he's tired. It's tough. We're almost through a school year of it. I'm so proud of everybody, but this is one more last little step we can take at the end of this school year, and the next school year, even if we're in masks, it's going to be so much more normal. So it is, and we're going to enhance what we do. We're actually going to get better next year, and we already got better this year.
I think the main question is the funding, where, because looks like it's going to be a greater number of staff needed than you normally have at, let's say, summer school.
Yep.
Are these funds that have already been provided to us?
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't want to jump in too much, but I'll take 1 minute here. If we look at our agenda, if we go to item 6A, we click on that. And if we go into T2C for CAT, this is a budget versus actual spreadsheet that I put together. Maria, for your question, if we look at row 31, which is Fund 467, this is Governor DeWine's Student Wellness and Success Funds. And we can see from column, am I too quick? I'll wait.
I found it, I think.
I got logged out.
Oh, yeah. No, take-
6A?
What do you want, you said 6A?
6A, T2C for cat.
T2C, okay.
So if we click on that, yeah, so if we look at row 31, which is Fund 467, this is Governor DeWine's Student Wellness and Success Funds. Now, we started fiscal year 21, which is our current fiscal year, with $63,599. We've received so far this year $83,405, and again, the $63,599 is in column D, and the total revenue is in column L, $83,405 received this year.
I
So-
can't open up L somehow. Wait a
Okay.
minute, let me see if I
Oh,
can
there it
move
is.
it somehow.
Yep, you can move it with the arrow at the bottom.
Gotta click in the right place. Click over to the,
I'm just clicking like, yeah, if you click one to the left and then just,
Oh, there's,
Yep.
is that L?
So if we look at column T, which is our ending cash, we have a total in that fund, Fund 467, of $147,004, which is our primary target to fund this initiative that we have. Governor DeWine is supporting more of these student wellness and success funds in his upcoming biennial budget, 2-year budget. We are hopeful that we're going to see funding from the governor. So 2 more years of this, which will be probably about the same, 150,000 approximately. But if we're looking at 25 staff, transportation, food service, just kind of ballparking it.
We should fall well under that.
Yeah, we should fall well under it.
Yep.
So we do have some ESSER 2 funds that maybe we reappropriate from our initial primary plan that we have in place. And there's always the ESSER 3 that is coming down. So we feel good that we don't have to fund this initiative through the general fund, although it's extremely important for what it is. Right. If we have other places to fund this, that would be my first option to use. So we're going to look at Fund 467 first, then ESSER, then if need be the general. But we have more, we have a healthy balance sitting in our student wellness and success funds right now. So
Another question too. So should we, well, it sounds like that the program, like when we look, you talked about the numbers, Mr. Young, about the 53% was down like 1 grade level, and then like I think it was 49% for, I think, reading, and then 53 for math. Like, so if that, I think that you mentioned it was about like an 8% like increase, and I think it was like a 5% increase or something like that.
Right.
So with that, we're trying to fill in those gaps, and I'm not sure what the national averages are, but then this should be a program then that we would do year over year though, right? Like even continuing beyond, like you're talking about beyond 22, into that year. So like, is that something that we need to probably put in like a 5-year forecast to like kind of budget for that, like going forward, or is that some other things?
Yeah, well, we were talking today, we were half joking around how long are we going to use COVID as an excuse for things.
Right.
And in education, it may be the next decade, because our second graders in a decade from now will be seniors, right? So
Yeah.
we can assume that these learning gaps, as they get closed, will get us more towards where we expect kids to be. But there will be some kids that will always
be there.
be behind. And so do we need to maybe repurpose our summer school program, our typical summer school program, to be more targeted towards this type of model? I think it's reasonable to think that on a smaller scale, that's something that we should consider. I think it's smart to do that. This has been a great rebranding year for all of us in education. You can't do things the way you've always done them to some degree. So this is an opportunity for us to, and I was talking to Mrs. Schukert prior to the meeting, we need to get something out of the summer school as well. We need to say, all right, let's talk about the data, and let's take that data with us to the fall
Yeah.
Because some schools are doing programs at the beginning of the school year instead of the end of the school year, saying kids are tapped out, some are doing both, so I think it's something that we have to maybe look at revamping how we do things, and still allow kids to be kids too, but we've got to address these learning losses, because it's, they're just now seeing the effects of Hurricane Katrina and its effects in New Orleans, because now those kids are of college age and are trying to acquire jobs now, and they're really seeing the gaps that were created by the devastation on that educational system. So we've got the data. A lot of people have been falling back on that particular natural disaster in that small cell of New Orleans there, but that devastated that educational system, and we're using the data from that now to say what can we project for these kids if we don't do something. That's why you see such a big effort, I think, learning from our past.
So with that, then, like, the number of students that would qualify for the extended learning program now because of COVID, and then pre-COVID, like, how big of an increase is that? Just to kind of say, like, is it, like pre-COVID versus now? Is there like, who would qualify for this program, like, right now, that you would strongly encourage to be involved, like, this year because of COVID?
Yeah. So if I were to pull up an iReady report, it would break kids into 5 distinct groups. And I would look at kids in your lowest 2 groupings to say those are your kids who are your highest need kids. Not that the kid who's maybe a gifted kid who's in the upper quintile doesn't need enrichment, because they've been very clear, students who are of gifted education, they have gaps too. They have not learned at the same rate that they would typically learn either. So that's why I applaud Mr. Evans for saying it's about every kid, because every kid has a gap, even if they're high achieving.
Yep.
So, we would definitely want to look at those 2 bottom groups to say this is our highest intense need kids, and that's where we would start with that. How many kids that is right now? We say 53% are at least 1 grade level behind. I'm more concerned about the kids who are 2 or more grade levels behind, and the few that are 3 grade levels behind. Those are the ones I'm most worried about, because we do have a few of those.
I guess you mentioned that too, like, on the upper echelon, like, those kids are, I guess you could theoretically say that they're not maximizing their potential of, even they're in the upper, quadrants. Like, is there gaps for them to fill? Like we're saying there is, and is there programs that they could help to, I guess, live to their potential?
Absolutely.
I guess, as well.
Again, that's from a very simplistic standpoint. That's built into the iReady program as well. Those kids in the upper. It will give you an individual report for every kid. You can provide an actual student report that says, here's where your kid is, here's exactly what they need as their next step, whatever that next step is. So you can take it down to the individual child, send those reports home with every child at the end of but then that means parents have to understand the data, and that can get pretty overwhelming as well. So, but it's there, and for those parents that want those reports, we can provide those reports. It's their kid, so
Great.
provide them the information that they want and they need.
They used to come home. I think they gave them at parent-teacher conferences,
Yeah,
and then I think at the, I don't know.
that's great. No, this is great. Like I said, my only question was about just, do we need to extend that out, like you just mentioned, and maybe that's something we have to look at down the line, where we have to, put that in the 5-year forecast as a potential, bucket that we're going to spend, and, look at our summer program the same way, like that, and with that intensity as
Right.
well.
I see too, though, the summer program changing perhaps from year to year. Like,
Right.
the needs might not be the same, and right now, I think we're still kind of developing what those needs are. And next year's summer program might look, the needs might be completely different,
Could be.
And Mr. Naaman, with your suggestion about the forecast too, I'm hopeful that ESSER 3 money that's coming down the line will have a long, extended, useful life to use those funds. So maybe upwards of 5 or even 10 years if we're
That's
looking
great.
at it.
That's
So
really good.
if ESSER 3, has a, let's say, 10-year lifespan that we can use those funds, and if we get 3 times as much as we've received for ESSER 2, which was about $300,000, let's say, we're looking at $900,000 for ESSER 3. So potentially we could use $100,000 per year for 9 years at least, and then if we have some success and wellness funds from the governor, so we can build that summer program to have for a number of years.
That's
So
perfect then.
that's
Yeah, it's really good.
that's my hopeful approach with it.
Yeah.
See how that goes.
And like Mr. Shupin said, I mean, those things that where we're, deficient is gonna change from year to year. So, I mean, who knows, hopefully those gaps shorten and we don't have to worry too much, but there's always gonna probably be a need at some point.
But we have very talented staff.
Yes.
We're very fortunate. When you have resources to bring in the best people. And I'll put our staff against anybody's staff. And if anybody's going to close a gap in a hurry, they have the ability to do it. And anything that we do extra is just going to make it better. So
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
very confident we're going to get this done in a very short period of time. But we're also committed for the long haul.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
And Mr. Young, would you ask Mr. Evans to keep the board apprised of significant developments in the program, given that we're committing these resources on so many different levels to this initiative? It would be nice to get some feedback periodically to let us know that the program's working as intended. Hopefully that's the answer, the conversation.
Absolutely.
I would appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is going to, we're devoting a coffee talk this Saturday to review this as well. I may even provide a sample iReady report that would not have any identifiable information, but show how we would pull those reports and exactly what it's telling us about a particular group or a particular child, so that even if a parent wanted to use this independently, that they would know how to do that. But there'll be a lot of communication about this, like I said, starting with our staff in the very near future, because I would like to have our folks in front of our kids, as opposed to having, not that aren't qualified people from other schools, but our staff know our kids and our families, and our kids respond so well to them. So, but definitely, yeah, you'll get updates. That may be more my responsibility to make sure I'm providing that to Mr. Evans, because I tend to dive into the data with the principals
I
quite a bit.
appreciate your focus on the
So,
data. That helps me make hopefully good decisions.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yep.
So rough timeline for families, when will they know if their kid, is like that kind of thing?
Right.
May-ish?
Well, so we're scheduled to give the last iReady diagnostic, I believe, mid-May.
Okay,
Mid-May. I think it's around the week of the 17th. It's the
Okay.
week of the 17th. So they can expect, probably prior to Memorial Day,
okay.
that
So
information.
quick. Okay,
I've got to talk that out with Mrs. Houchin, how she plans to do that. But we already know which kids. I mean, if a child is in the lowest tier right now, and I hate to use the word lowest, the first quintile right now, they're not going to be in the third quintile over a
Right.
2-month, 3-month period. We know that child could move to the second quintile, but not to the third or fourth. There's too much that child has to overcome in a very short period of time. So we have a pretty good idea of which students, but again, we're inviting everybody. So
I'm just wondering, families that have already planned vacations and things like that,
right.
just, I don't know, just thinking.
Well,
from
and
that
that's
point of view.
those other things that we've talked about is, do we need to purchase some resources? I hate to be simplified, but something with like a workbook that has answer keys in the back that a parent could sit down with their child in the middle of the summer and say, hey, we're going to work a 15-minute lesson today, and I'm going to check your results, and it's something that can be taught at home with the parent and the child. We do have some funding, for that in some of our title funds that we could use on some of those resources at those, especially at the primary and elementary levels. So we've got some things to still work out. It's a complicated problem to solve, and the real value is in reducing those class sizes and providing that targeted instruction and that looping piece that we may be able to do effectively over the next 2 to, if ESSER 3 comes through, potentially a little bit longer than that. So that's the real value, is having those long-term staff members. Okay. Sorry to take, so it took an hour and 2 presentations.
That's great.
It's all
It's
right.
important, very important.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Um, This is great information, and I'm happy you guys are getting in front of this to get this done.
Thank you. It's a great team here, great team.
Section 4, comments from the public. Seeing no one here, we'll move on to 5, treasurer's business. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the, oops, I'm gonna send it to you, Mr. Muccio.
Thank you, Mrs. Shrewsbury. A couple items tonight for approval. Item 5A, approval of minutes. Motion to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2021 regular meeting is found in attachment T1. Item 6A, motion to accept the bank reconciliation, financial reports, and payments for board review as of February 28th, 2021, as prepared and certified by the treasurer as accurate, as found in attachment T2. Item 6B, motion to approve new vendors to the school district per W-9s attached, as found in attachment T3. Item 6C, motion to approve purchase orders over $5,000 as found in attachment T4. Item 6D, motion to approve a modification of the permanent appropriations for fiscal year 2021 as found in attachment T5. Item 6E, motion to approve an agreement with comp management at a cost of $1,275 for the annual contract period beginning September 1st, 2021, as a third-party administrator for administration, if applicable, of both workers' compensation and unemployment compensation claims management services, and the group retrospective rating enrollment for the policy year beginning January 1st, 2022, as found in attachment T6. As for motions 5A, 6A through 6E for approval.
Okay, at this time, I'll take a motion to approve the treasurer's business consent agenda motions.
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Suchecki, seconded by Mr. Naaman.
Second.
And discussion.
Yep, just wanted to go back over a couple items that we have here. I won't jump into the financial reports, item 6A, too much, because we're going to have the 5-year forecast coming up, so we'll talk at length about our finances, for the next month or so. So I'll kind of save that for that one, but we're on track. Actually, we're doing more favorable for where we're at, so it's encouraging to see. Item 6B, approve new vendors. If we open T3, we'll see that tonight we have 7 tonight as new vendors to the school district. Number 1 is School Safe ID. That's a visitor management system. Mr. Wallace or Mr. Young, did you want to mention or talk about that by chance?
Yeah, basically what this does is it provides 2 kiosks, one in each building, where we can scan driver's licenses of people coming in and check the known registries and see if they are on any list and if they should be allowed in school or not. And then we can also track our visitors electronically in the event that we have to evacuate or something like that. We can get a list real quickly instead of doing it on paper.
What's the, what's the need that we're trying to meet here?
Basically, we need to identify the visitors that come in and make sure they're not sex offenders. Right now, we're pretty antiquated with that system. It's basically just paper and pencil and a trust system saying that they're not supposed to be in here. But we received grant funds through the state of Ohio that will help supplement this cost for checks.
Does the list go to a constantly updated database that it bounces up against, or is it stagnant?
National registry.
Okay. Got it.
Question,
Good.
so is it any visitor? I mean, like every person coming into the football field for a football game?
It's anybody that's coming in the building, so we.
In the building.
Will be stationed in the office.
During the school day.
They will scan
Okay.
in their driver's license, or if they've already been there, they can type in their name and it'll come here.
Okay,
It checks a list. If you are on a list, it will text message or email the principal, right, put them there so they know. And then it will print out a visitor badge for you, saying why you're there. And so you would have a visitor badge.
Is there have to be a modification of policy about like what to do in that situation, and a procedure around like removal from an individual if they're in violation or anything like that? Is there any policy revisions that have to happen with that? I don't know. Okay,
I don't believe so. I think that's all part of our safety plan.
okay,
We would follow that safety plan at that point.
sounds good.
Okay, number 2 is the National Background Check Incorporated. This W-9 is for a background check machine, new vendor. Dave, did you also want to talk about this one too?
So basically, the state of Ohio is upgrading their system, and is no longer supporting our system. So we have to October to replace the system, or we cannot run background checks in the district for anybody. So we're sort of forced into this, by the state of Ohio, and we still want to run background checks here for employees and other people around the district, so.
The next new vendor we have, number 3, is Vincent Group. This is online curriculum. Mr. Young, did you want to mention about that one?
This is another online curriculum that we're considering. Typically, we go through Northeast Ohio ESC and their consortium, but this would allow us to have more direct access to a curriculum at a very affordable rate that it gives us the flexibility to either have teacher-guided curriculum or a self-graded curriculum mainly for the purpose of credit recovery, credit deficiency, or students who are on some type of medical 504 that just can't come to school. And we had talked about next year, we plan to have every student back 5 days a week next school year. No online, no remote learning. It's not even an option with the state of Ohio to have remote learning as we've done it this year. That expires at the end of this school year. But there may be some students who, because of medical conditions, cannot come to school during this COVID pandemic. This would allow us to provide curriculum to those students as well at a much more affordable cost than it would be if we went through another party.
Number 5, we have Franchise Service Concepts doing business as MicroShield 360. This is another vendor in which we can purchase sanitizer for. And vendors 6 and 7, new to the district, would be for the Flip Saunders sign that we have a picture of. Mr. Young included a picture in the folder. I'll talk about this more at the next item that we have, purchase orders over 5,000. So I'll exit out of here. I'll go into 6C, purchase orders over 5,000. I'll click on our lead sheet that we have. And for purchase orders over 5,000, we have 5 tonight. Number 1 is National Background Check, which is what Mr. Wallace was talking about, for $6,249. Number 2 is for Trombold Equipment, and that is to replace a sewage pump in the high school boiler room, and that's at $13,400. Number 3 and number 4 are the scoreboard. 3 is Nevco, and this is for the new indoor scoreboards, the stat panels for the Flip Saunders Gymnasium at a cost of $21,212.78. And Mr. Young included a picture of what that'll look like in here. Scoreboard MD number 4 is for the custom sign, which is at the very top, the top truss that we see where it says the CH Flip, the flip. And then also the installation of the scoreboards would be Scoreboard MD, and that's a cost of $7,065. And number 5 is Weatherproofing Technologies, and we have that proposal in the folder as well, and that is for the roof replacement, which is leaking over the high school, middle school cafeteria at a cost of $190,168.12. And we also have a corresponding resolution later on the agenda tonight in the board business, which is in conjunction with this purchase order that we have here. And just to touch base on the Weatherproofing Technologies roof replacement. We do have sitting water that's on top of that roof, and I know Mr. Young's going to talk about this more too. We are a member of a cooperative purchasing program, and this is kind of what that resolution is going to talk more on tonight that we'll look to approve. But by being a member of a cooperative purchasing program, we essentially join that group, and that group, in essence, bids out the project. So corporations, businesses will, reply back, and then they have a winning bidder. And then similar to Ohio Schools Council, schools can participate in that cooperative purchasing program and say, yes, we do need a roof replacement because our roof is leaking. And that's how we can use a cooperative purchasing program. Instead of going, since this is over $25,000 or $50,000 for competitive bidding, we can go that route as a member of a cooperative purchasing program and enter into an agreement with Weatherproofing Technologies for the fix of that. Mr. Young, is there anything you want to add for any of these?
Just that this is going to involve the removal of really 3 layers of that roof. You've got the current membrane that's there, as well as a polystyrene layer underneath that, and then you've got the original gravel of when that structure was built. All has to be removed, pulled up over top of the school building in order to remove it. You can't pull it through windows and through the hallway because of where that structure is. They got up in there and found that there's an awful lot of moisture. And with the freeze and the thaw, it's time to replace that with the leaking that's happening there. So this is it is a large project. It's slated to start this summer, be finished when kids come back to school. It does have a 20-year manufacturer's warranty with inspections at 2, 5, 10, and 15 years. And Tremco is a company that we've been with for 30 plus years, I believe. So they know our facility very well. As Mr. Muccio said, by going this route, it's taken care of that competitive bidding process, and that's what that resolution at the end will basically denotes that we've done our due diligence and followed our own policy.
If I exit out of here. If I go to item 6D, the modification, we only have a handful tonight, 5, and they're small all around. The first one is Fund 19. We're increasing the appropriations in that fund by $450, and that's for teacher stipends for Laura Butler, Kelsey Mason, and Jory Huffman. Number 2, Fund 510, we're decreasing by 99 cents to match with our CCIP, and that's for the Coronavirus Relief Funds grant. We purchased laptop computers with that grant. Actually, items 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all due to a update with our CCIP, which is our grant software through the state. And the state came back and they adjusted our allocations, some small increases and one large increase, which is number 3. So Fund 572, which is our Title I grant, has an increase of $8,775.19. That's why we're increasing our appropriations in that fund. It is possible that we might have a carryover in that fund, so we're going to have to apply for a waiver to the Ohio Department of Education, because anything higher than 15% we need a waiver for. So we may not be able to spend all of our title funds. We're still discussing that right now of that. So that's the third appropriation that we have. And number 4 and number 5 are $30-some increases. Fund 590, which is our Title IIA grant, an increase of $33.23. And number 5, Fund 599, which is our Title IVA grant, an increase of $35.26. Again, that's just to match our CCIP, adjust the allocations from the state. Item 6E, the last one tonight, is our yearly agreement with comp management. It's a reasonable cost, $1,275. And what they provide is, administration for our workers' compensation, which we do use them. Mr. Young is kind of our point person for that, for workers' compensation. And unemployment claims. Especially now, I don't think a year or maybe a year and a half back, thinking about unemployment isn't something really that happens here much, but with all the fraud taking place at the state, it's nice to have comp management dealing with this on the very first front side, and we work with them too on all of our claims, and they help us with their expertise. So I was kind of shocked to see their quote come back to us at only $1,275 with everything going on, because I imagine that they're working a lot more because of all the fraudulent claims for unemployment. And we've just seen, in the past week, I've reported 6 more to the state. So, we know it's a problem statewide, and it's a problem that is affecting us here, as well as the group retrospective rating. And I have an info sheet that talks about the group retrospective rating, which we've been a member of and participated in every year I've been here. It's a way for us to get a refund back from the state, in short. And if we click on that quote from comp management, our refund by going to the group retrospective program, which is offered through the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, could be as high as their target refund of $13,946. So, it's safe to say that we're going to see a refund come back, because we don't have a large amount of workers' comp claims, and we have a highly classified safe district here for our staff. So by entering the program, we should actually make money, a return on investment, from going with comp management, and we've been doing that every year. Exit out of here. And those are the items I have for approval for tonight.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the treasurer's business consent agenda motions? Just kidding, roll call.
Yep. Mr. Souchaki?
Aye.
Mr. Naaman?
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye.
Mrs. Etter?
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert?
Aye, motion passes 5-0.
And just to add two discussion items tonight. The first one is the May 2021 five-year forecast. And I just have the timeline to present. And we talked about this at our last meeting too. So April 21st, which is our next upcoming regular board meeting, I'll have the forecast for a presentation at that night, and then I'll present as typically do. Number two, the Finance Committee. Mr. Dobbins, I know we penciled in, I believe it's Wednesday the 28th.
The following week is what we penciled in. Does that still look good?
Yeah, I think if we want to, we can always lock that down whenever, we're all ready, and we can, send out the public notice. So I'll kind of wait for you, but I think that's a good date that we have in place, the
Just a
28th.
thought though, too, I don't know why I'm just picking up on this now, but in the past, the Finance Committee looked at it, I think, before the board looked at it. So,
I switched it up only because I kind of wanted the board to see it first this time. I wanted to see how it goes.
okay.
So the
I
board
just
would
don't know
sit-
that there's a point for the Finance Committee to meet,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking.
because what it could happen is that the Finance, Committee meets to kind of talk about, like, do there need to be any tweaks before it's presented to the board, because they're the ones that make recommendations to the board. So, to me, it's almost like a redundant meeting to have a Finance Committee meeting after it's presented to the board.
Because if
Valid point.
yeah, if we make suggestions, then actually, then it's gonna go right to a board vote then, right? I think the next meeting after that,
Yeah,
right?
like it wouldn't,
So
yeah,
you wouldn't have time to get the tweaks back to the board.
yeah.
We could with a special meeting,
I-
but I don't anticipate there'd be many tweaks that we're going to.
Again, it'd be nice to see, committee, like, I'm all about committees, but not pointless committees that are just meeting to meet, especially in this day and age,
Yeah, the committee should be bringing recommendations.
to the board.
To the entire board.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah,
And it has input beyond 5 of us, there are input from.
Community
hopefully
members.
financially, or people in the finance industry who are part of that committee along with board members.
right.
And one thing we can do, if we want, we can have the Finance Committee meet the 28th. I'll hold off on presenting the 21st, and then we can call maybe a special Board of Education meeting, let's say, the first week of May, and then we just,
I'm personally not in favor of a special meeting for something like that. Just, one, it pays us, and two, May's gonna be nuts. Life is crazy right now. Just trying to wrap up this school year. I would just say, and I know it goes back to your original question, like, should we just invite the Finance Committee members, let them know that that it's gonna be reviewed at the board meeting, but maybe there's a special email that goes out to the, Finance Committee to attend.
And you could rearrange the schedule of the meeting so that that's up near the top, right, so they aren't sitting here for 45 minutes of other presentations.
And again, I don't know what flexibility we have, but if there's recommendation, like public comment wise, if there's feedback they want to give like that in there, or questions that they have, that it,
Another option would be to follow the IT mode, the IT committee's mode, which is typically to meet immediately prior to a board meeting. So we might have a finance committee meeting at 6 or 6:30, and then roll into the regular board meeting and take whatever comments or concerns, and if people wanted to join the board meeting and then follow up and repeat or reiterate their comments or concerns, we could do that too. I'm fine with whatever.
he'll,
way to go.
he'll never get 30 minutes.
Yeah.
He'll never
All
be
right.
able to get through it in 30 minutes.
The only other issue to
Okay.
that
The day
is,
before.
Yeah,
the only other issue to that is the technology committee's meeting, the next meeting at 6 too as well.
that day,
So that either, I'd have to do one or the other. We move the technology committee
on
meeting,
the 21st?
21st.
Oh, okay, well then,
At 6 to
Well,
7.
are you finance too?
Just- Yeah.
You just have to be.
Are you finance?
yeah.
I thought I was finance.
No, you asked not to, you asked.
I asked not to be the
Yeah,
head of
you
it.
said
I'm
not
off
to,
of it
I'd say,
completely?
And then you took the chair.
Oh,
now.
then go for it. You guys could call special meetings.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, so I mean, it's whatever, it's like,
Why don't we go with the idea that we will roll that content into the board meeting in lieu of a finance committee meeting? If you give me a list of who the people are, I'll send an
I think they
invitation
sent
to
you
them.
an email with their emails.
Think
I can
so.
resend it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you would do that.
Yep.
And if we could move up on the agenda for the board meeting, the discussion of the 5-year forecast, if that's agreeable to everybody?
Sounds good. Sounds
Okay.
good.
let's
That
do
works. Perfect. So then we'll do,
Scratch the finance committee.
yep, we'll do the finance committee into the board meeting on the 21st.
Yeah.
So number 3 would be the best committee. You know, I kind of had late April, early May for a best committee meeting for the forecast. We'd have to talk with
Well, that's
Mr.
Tom, it's the superintendent's committee.
Correct. We'd have to,
and There's usually 2 board members that are invited to those. I'm one of the attendees,
Yeah.
invitees.
so then I'll speak with Mr. Evans on,
Yeah,
The
we can
potential-
roll that in too.
yeah,
To me, nobody's coming to these meetings.
yeah.
You know, instead of having this meeting on top of this committee and this committee, I don't know,
Yeah,
just throwing it out there.
no, that's what we're
You know,
talking about, yeah.
Or what happens is, you know, the same presentation's happening 4 times.
Right. So it can happen once,
Right.
and everybody be there. Who wants to be?
Who wants to, right.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to roll in kind of everybody to that 21st meeting.
I
Well,
would roll the
yeah.
dice into that too.
And-
I
and-
suggest we
I agree.
do that too.
And I think that we keep that meeting like the 21st, but like, let's use the technology. So if people can't be in the finance committee meeting, we can just run it through Zoom as well.
21st. We don't have students.
At least
of the
that
month
piece, if there's people that could be,
We have
you know.
students of the month that meeting.
They're not gonna wanna sit, I would not put
No, I
finance
don't want to
first.
either. I mean, I don't want like to be in meetings for,
And
Zoom for hours.
look-
I just thought
Location.
that we are talking about doing this on the 21st, or we're talking about doing this in May?
No, the
Lost track.
21st.
21st.
You know, we got
21st.
students of the month,
Yeah,
that's way
okay,
too
well,
much.
that's- Yeah, that is.
Wow.
Sorry.
Too much is what? As far as what?
Well, the students of the month will take 45 minutes, and you'll start,
He's doing the forecast anyway. He's presenting the forecast anyway. So it's either inviting people to listen to it or not inviting people to listen. The time is still gonna be the same amount. He's still going through the 5-year forecast. And as far as guests go, I think we can fit fine in this. We haven't been close to, you know,
I'm not worried about
social
capacity.
distance capacity.
You just might want to tell the members of the committees that students of the month will be at the beginning of the meeting.
Right,
You'll be
right.
right afterwards,
Right,
approximately,
right.
right? So if they don't
Right.
want to sit through students of the month, they can put
Right.
in just for their sake.
You're talking 3 in our committee.
I don't know how many are.
There's 3. As far as best goes too, though, you're talking about the bringing everyone together. Hey, come see our celebration of the Students of the Month. Might not be such a bad
Might
thing,
not be so bad,
you know, since it is a celebration. I don't know. Try to kill like 3 birds with one stone.
Yeah, I know.
yeah. That's okay.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
It's kind of
You
making
may want to bring that
sense.
up.
He has to present it to 3 different groups.
Yeah.
He's got to present it to us too. Perhaps bring those groups together.
And like I said, you could make a virtual option, like for the people that can't attend the meeting, and they could,
Yeah.
if they're
Yeah.
viewing it from home. That's what I'm saying about zooming it.
And then we may want to move the meeting from here to the auditorium.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Right.
Anyway.
It has
Yeah.
to be for Student of the Month,
Yep.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Sounds good. Let's try it.
Okay.
All right, we'll roll with it. And then at the May 12th, number 4, 2021 regular board meeting, we'd look to approve the forecast. So,
And that would be just a flat approval. I mean, there's,
right,
unless there were a couple of minor updates, in which case you point them out.
correct. Yep. And then item 8B is the discussion for a time clock system. So, when I came here, there was talk about a time clock system. Fast forward to now, so now we're ready to really take a look at the time clock system and implement it. We kind of hit pause in the middle of that time frame because we switched over from the classic state software to the state software redesign. We felt it wasn't worthwhile to implement the new clock system while we were switching over our main accounting software. So now that we've switched over, now is the perfect time to implement the time clock system. Tested over the summer, so we're ready to go square one next school year, day one. So Mr. Young, Mr. Wallace, myself, and then the entire treasurer's office, we've already looked at 3 vendors so far, And I think we've kind of taken it down to 2 vendors, and we're gonna meet tomorrow, and we're really gonna hash out pros and cons and our wish list, what we wanna see, encompass a full-wide, time clock system for the district. And then once we have that meeting, we put together, pros and cons, what we wanna see, how we wanna see people log into the new time clock system, where we wanna have them, what type of machines we wanna have around the district, how does it work on the front side, how does it work, implementing all that software into the redesigned, accounting software that we have. So once we compile all that together, we'll bring that presentation to the board at an upcoming board meeting, and we'll talk about the choice that the district team that we have on it would recommend that we go with into the future. So just want to give everybody a heads up that that'll be coming down the way soon. So
That sounds good. So I imagine one of the requirements is that the time clock system has a feed right to payroll, right?
yeah,
Right?
they're all kind of different, but yeah, that's the short of it.
Yeah, probably that's probably
Yep.
a nice to have, a good requirement to have.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yep, especially with, COVID and how everybody's, we're not in our standard typical, everybody's here, but everybody's kind of spread out and whatnot. So, yeah, it's the time to get the time clock system in over the summer. And it's going to be a busy summer for us, but, we're excited about the time clock system and bringing more forward to the board, talk about more.
And still, when you're doing the presentation for us, I would like to have a good idea of cost benefit. I
Oh, yeah.
mean, we're spending X dollars,
Yep.
and what are we getting for those X dollars?
Yep.
Are we getting better improvement? Are we reducing tasks so that they can take on other responsibilities? I mean,
Because
if you make an investment, it should pay us somewhere along the line. maybe.
Yeah. Agreed. Yep.
So I imagine like a payroll interface would actually probably have some time savings, probably in putting payroll together and all that stuff. Probably.
Yeah, absolutely,
You know,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
probably-
Technology only makes our tasks easier as
Yeah.
we go through it, so. And more accurate, too,
Yeah.
so. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Mr. Young, Superintendent's business, please.
Thank you. Item 9A, a motion to approve Megan Neville to attend the Advanced Placement Summer Institute Seminar in Gulfport, Florida on the dates of July 12th through the 16th, 2021, to be paid for with Title IIA funds. Item 9B, approval, motion to approve a request for rental of Ralph P. Adams Stadium for Trinity High School for their event to be held on April 24th, 2021. Item 10A, motion to approve the reemployment of the attached list of individuals in the classified staff position and contract stipulated effective with the 2021-22 contract year per adopted salary schedule. Item 11A, motion to approve Zachary Nornberg to provide additional specialized instruction to a student with disabilities for the remainder of the 2020-21 school year at a rate of $30.11 per hour, not to exceed $1,000. Item 12A, motion to accept per submitted date of the resignation letter, March 25th, 2021, middle school, high school art teacher Emily Witchy's retirement date of June 30th, 2020. Item 13A, motion to approve the employment of Steve Harris as volunteer softball coach, contingent upon successful completion of the BCI, FBI print checks and proper certification if applicable. I ask for the consideration of all items in sections 9 through 13 for board approval.
Can I have a motion to approve the superintendent's business consent agenda motions?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Etter,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Naaman. Discussion?
Absolutely. Back to item 9A, there are 4 attachments there. We have an outstanding AP program here, and in order to do that, we have to ensure that our staff is properly certified, trained to implement the rigor in the curriculum. So this is a typical event for us. We're paying for it out of Title II grant funds, which is the Supporting Effective Instruction Fund. There are typically no summer institutes in the state of Ohio. So whether you go to Florida or Colorado, they're all about the same cost for that. So this is something we've routinely done in the past. As a side note, Ms. Neville, it's a great honor for our school district and especially for her. She's been selected to be trained next school year by the College Board to be a workshop and summer institute consultant. So as opposed to going and receiving the training, she's actually been chosen by College Board to be a trainer of other teachers.
Wow.
So to go along with her national board certification. Now she will, at the end of next school year, will have that to hang on her hat. So it's a great accomplishment for her and an honor for our school district for sure. For item 9B, Trinity has become a recent partner with respect to renting our facilities. They did that a couple times last fall with football in the playoffs, and they've asked to do that then for a upcoming track meet. And Mr. Evans has mentioned looking at a more substantial plan where they may actually rent our football stadium next year for all of their football games, because our facility provides things that their current facility that they've been renting does not.
And they do pay us for that, and they cover all the employment
Yep, they do.
responsibilities for their.
Yeah, for example, it's a $1,200 fee that they are paying in order to rent our stadium for track and field. Yeah, so we ensure that Mr. Kelber takes care of that. All you're seeing here is their application for it. If you'd like to see the full version of that, you can see how the costs are broken down. He's done a nice job of putting together a more formal rental system when it comes to our athletic events. Item 10A, these are our classified staff who are on a limited contract. You're going to see a lot of different designations within that. Back in November 2nd, 2018, the law changed for our classified staff, where it takes 7 years of employment before they can be awarded a continuing contract. So in essence, they're given 4 limited contracts, a 1 year, and then their first 2 year, then their second 2 year, and then their third 2 year. And at the end of that third 2 year, they can be recommended then for a continuing contract. Prior to that, it was only 3 years of service. This is more in line with what teachers go through. They go through a 4-year resident educator program on a provisional license, and then 3 years of teaching before qualifying for a continuing contract. So those are in alignment now. It gives us more time to grow our staff, and it's a little bit more patient in awarding those continuing contracts. Item 11A, we have a student with an individual education plan who, in order to stay on target to meet graduation requirements and to get caught back up, needs additional specialized instruction, and Mr. Nornberg is doing this as a 7th class. So we're paying him it's a .00075 of the base salary, which is what we've been using this year for situations like this. So he'll be doing that as his case manager. He is really the only one who can provide that type of instruction. We want to keep that student on target. With respect to item 12A, the retirement of Ms. Witchy. Ms. Witchy, 27 years of service. We can't thank her enough for the passion and the dedication she had to finding the artist in every student that she taught, whether it was a great artist or just a tiny artist. She pulled that artistic talent out of those kids, and she did it with such passion. This was a second career for her. She did not start off in education and came to us and gave us 27 years and really did phenomenal things for kids. And you can't really walk down a hallway here at Cuyahoga Heights without seeing some mural or something on the wall that was given to us by a student of Ms. Witchy. So, and Mr. Suchaki, I know you have a long history with her, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments about Ms. Witchy. Well, you mentioned all the artwork. I mean, I don't set my model trains up every year anymore, but when I do, I have some artwork that my kids did when they had Miss Witchy as part of that train set. But so she has had an influence on all of our family. But I've known her for a long time because we both worked for the May Company. And I was in the downtown stores as associate training manager when they opened the Euclid Square Mall May Company store in 1977. All of us, except maybe Dave, were alive then, I think.
I was one, Gary. I was one.
You were one. You were one. Oh,
Just throwing it out there.
I forgot about Matt. He's just anyhow.
He didn't make it either, huh?
So when we got this letter, and we all got this letter a couple of weeks ago, I sent her a note saying, you know, it's been wonderful to know you for so many years. I'm very sad you're leaving. I understand that it's, you know, it's a necessity that you leave at this point. And I'd like to come in and see you before you leave. And when she wrote back, she said, she referred to us working together at May Company, and she reminded me of something that I had forgotten. I went out to Euclid Square Mall. I was the person who was in charge of doing the sales associate training for that building. And we had to hire a training manager for that building, and I worked with Jack Plata, the personnel manager. Now they're HR, of course. We used to call them personnel managers. To interview and hire someone. Well, I interviewed her for her very first job out of college. So she got her, you know, I was there for her very first interview, and she said, it's interesting that you were part of the team who hired me for my first job, and now I'm submitting my resignation to you as a member of a team in a whole different venue 44 years later. And I thought that was an interesting story, and I wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you.
It's fantastic. We really wish her well. She's just a terrific person, was an amazing teacher, and hope that retirement treats her well. She's definitely earned it. And then item 13A, all of our volunteers we approve. They all go through background checks in our onboarding process. So this is a pretty typical thing. Mr. Harris has served us in many capacities. So I ask for these items on the consent agenda to be considered for approval.
So roll call, please.
Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Mr. Naaman,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki,
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And then we have one other motion.
Yes, item 15. This is the motion to approve the employment of Anthony Etter as spring faculty manager volunteer and boys basketball coach volunteer for the 2020-2021 school year, contingent upon successful completion of the BCI, FBI print checks and proper certification if applicable. I ask for this item to be considered for approval.
I will make a motion to approve the superintendent's business agenda item motion.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Souchaki. And any discussion?
Just that we pulled this off the consent agenda because obviously Anthony is a relative of Mrs. Etter, and by pulling this off separately, she did not have to abstain from the entire consent agenda. So Anthony will be volunteering spring faculty manager. Our faculty managers are so important to assisting our athletic director with the management of spring sports. And in the volunteer boys basketball coach for the 2020-21 school year, even though the season is over, we are now starting our camps. And so this allows us to have Anthony work with our basketball team through some of our open gyms and our camps that we will do prior to next fiscal year. So that's why that date is there for boys basketball.
Excellent. Roll call?
Mrs. Schukert,
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins,
Aye.
Mrs. Etter,
Abstain?
Mr. Naaman.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. Here we go. Okay, next up, superintendent's comments and
Yep.
discussions.
Yes, be very quick. It's already taken enough time tonight. We do have a coffee talk this Saturday, April 10th at 10 o'clock a.m. Please join us either in person here in the media center or on Zoom. Mr. Evans will send that link out. The discussion will be on the extended learning plan. Last night was the George Gross Invitational. A great event, but a very solemn event last night because this was our first invitational we've had without Coach Gross. Our boys took first place and won the invitational. Girls were fifth. And talking to Mr. Maria today, have to believe that Coach Gross was somewhere on that straightaway screaming positive thoughts to our kids, and for our boys to take a first place there, pull it out, very unexpected. Got to think they had a little extra help there. Testing season begins here at Cuyahoga Heights. April 12th through May 19th, we will be giving 37 assessments, all right, during a pandemic, and that includes remote kids, that includes in-person kids. It's fantastic that we've gone to that one-to-one program this year, because we are able to pull this off socially distanced in big spaces, and we have enough devices to do it fairly efficiently. Thanks to Stan Durbin, who's helping facilitate that. Mr. Dan Durazio is helping with that, and of course, Mr. Wallace and Mr. Hartman, who, when computers crash, we scream their names from the rafters. And finally, I know Mr. Evans had discussed this at one point, but he has every intention of, before the end of the school year, potentially even before the end of this month, we talk about all these additional meetings, he wants to have a more formal mascot discussion in which he invites the community, either in person or through Zoom, to provide feedback on the Cuyahoga Heights mascot that can be used then to, have further discussions down the line. But he would like the feedback of the community and plans to send out communication as to when that will be. But he would like to have an open forum for people to come share their thoughts, provide their feedback, for us to listen and move from there. So expect to have some communication from Mr. Evans in the future. And finally, thanks to Mr. Evans for having faith in me to fill in for him tonight. He could not be here. Rather than canceling the meeting, thanks to him, thanks to Mr. Muccio, and of course the board for taking the risk, and hopefully it went smooth enough tonight.
It did, no risk.
Moving on to item 18, board business resolutions. Item A, I will take a motion, a motion to authorize the superintendent to approve in-state professional development for staff, but we don't have any, correct? Isn't this what we said?
No, what this is
Okay, help me out before I'll
Right.
repeat it.
yeah, anytime you have, per our contract, that number is much lower
Okay.
than what you see in the contract. And this actually allows us to have a little bit more flexibility where we don't have to take items over $300 to the Board of Education for in-state. Obviously, out-of-state has to be board approved. But this allows us to, should we have any in-state that's over, which is coming. We have dyslexia training that's going to be a requirement for our staff in the future, which will exceed $300. So that may be coming in the near future, and he wanted a resolution to be able to do that.
Okay, so let me go back. Item 18A, a motion to authorize the superintendent to approve in-state professional development for staff not in excess of $1,000. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Right? Because it's not consent.
Yeah, it's consensus.
I'll move.
Okay, moved by Mr. Naaman,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Dobbins. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Mr. Naaman,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins,
Aye.
Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki,
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. We're going old school. This is old school now. With
I noticed
individual,
that.
that's
That's why
big.
I went like that, saying, you.
Okay, item 18B, I'll take a motion to approve the resolution authorizing participation in a cooperative purchasing program and authorizing the award of a contract for a roofing project.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Naaman.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Souchaki. Discussion. I think we talked about this earlier. Moving forward, roll call, please.
Mr. Naaman,
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins,
Aye.
Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Board adoption of bylaws and policies, do you want to take it away, Mr. Young? Or do you want me
There's
just to read
nothing new
through
to
them?
add. If you didn't have any questions about that these are all pretty standard recommendations that came to us from Neola and had to do with a lot of our grant funding and some of the things with budgeting. And Mr. Muccio has reviewed all of these.
Okay, so I can read through them, because
Yes.
I see that it wasn't a consent one. Do you see that?
Yeah, why don't you do all five of them?
All right. So 19A, motion to adopt policy 6114, Edgar revisions, cost principles, spending federal funds as reviewed on April 7th, 2021. Item 9B, or 19B, motion to adopt policy 6325, Edgar revisions, procurement, federal grants funds as reviewed on April 7th, 2021. Item 19C, motion to adopt policy 7450, Edgar revisions, property inventory as reviewed on April 7th, 2021. Item 19D, motion to adopt policy 7455, Edgar revisions, accounting system for capital assets, as reviewed on April 7th, 2021. Item 19E, motion to adopt policy 6220, budget preparation, as reviewed on April 7th, 2021. And item 19F, motion to adopt policy 6600, deposit of public funds, cash collection, as reviewed on April 7th, 2021. Can I have a motion to approve the board's business consent agenda motions?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Suchaki,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Dobbins. Okay, we'll give it to Mr. Dobbins.
Say that's it.
Discussion, this is a second
I'm
read.
just curious about, this is just a point of order in all of these, as reviewed on April 7th. I mean, what, is as reviewed supposed to have been the first reading? So that's the wrong date.
That's what I was thinking too.
It should have been March, whatever.
March 10th.
That's
March 10th.
accurate.
Yep. We can make
So
the
do we amend
correction.
those all to say March 10th?
Yeah,
Or
that was our previous board meeting. We can make the correction in the minutes to reflect that this should say as
This should say
reviewed
March
on
10th.
March 10th, 2021.
That's correct.
Yep.
okay.
Good catch, Gary.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what today was, so that's good. Okay, so are we good there? Do we do roll call? I'm sorry, Mr., you can take
Oh.
your time.
Mr. Suchaki,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins,
Aye.
Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Mr. Naaman,
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Next up, possible future agenda items. We might be, I don't know, mascot, I don't know that we'll discuss it as a board prior to the meeting, probably not. But depending on when the community meeting is, there might be a board meeting, so that might be a possible agenda item.
Could be.
Any other agenda items? Okay, hearing none. Upcoming regular meetings, Wednesday at 7 PM, April 21st, May 12th, May 26th, June 9th, and June 23rd, all in 2021. And I would just, say to the public, make sure you're paying attention because we are flip-flopping depending on size of meetings. So it'll either be between the library and the auditorium. At this point, I would hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session pursuant to ORC Section 121.22G1 for the purpose of considering the employment and/or compensation of employees of the school district, and ORC Section 121.22G4 for preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.